All right, coming by March 11th, we got a major problem that could cause the economy to crash, the stock market to crash, and we're already starting to see major billionaires and investors pull billions of dollars from the stock market. And this is a major problem because this is going to be a serious thing. And this is all part of possibly the Fed's plan. And this is going to cause a massive, massive meltdown for average, everyday millions of Americans. And I'm going to show you all the details in this video. Let's jump right in. Thank you so much for liking these videos. Here is all the evidence. And this has happened 2 times before in the United States. And you're not going to believe what happened here in the past. Take a look here. First, part of this problem stems going back here from March 2020 when the Federal Reserve reduced banking reserve requirements to 0 in March 2020. Since that time, banks in the United States have not been required to actually hold any depositor money in the banks, making a flawed system, fractional reserve banking, worse. So imagine that banks actually hold 0 money in the banks. And we've already seen major banks in the United States fail here within the last few years. And Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has already said that there will be, most likely, more banks to fail. And now we're already seeing major billionaires pull billions of dollars from large companies like Warren Buffett, selling billions of dollars of Apple shares should you follow his lead. This comes after he previously sold $28.7 billion in stocks. Alarm bells ringing over the economy. This comes after the stock markets just hit all-time highs. But do these billionaires know something that the Fed has told us that the average everyday Americans don't know? Take a look here. Jeff Bezos, Jamie Dimon, Mark Zuckerberg have sold stocks worth about $9 billion. They might think that the markets can't go much higher. Are we in for a major crash, a stock market crash, an economy crash? Well, they're putting their money where their mouth is. As you can see here, Mark Zuckerberg sold nearly $500 million of Meta stock in the last 2 months, after Warren Buffett just sold $29 billion in stocks. Jeff Bezos just wrapped up $50 million of Amazon stock sale, or 50 million shares of Amazon stock sale, netting $8.5 billion. And it does make you kind of wonder, what do they know? Well, all this comes back to what's going to happen here starting March 11th. And we're possibly already starting to see it a little bit early. Well, remember, the stock market is always forward looking, so we will see what happens. But I want to let you guys know what's happening ahead of time. This is because the Fed has already raised rates on emergency loan programs to stop arbitrage. Bank Term Funding Program will expire on March 11th as planned. March 11th is the key date. You can see here from multiple different sources here. Fed to allow emergency bank lending program to expire on March 11th. This is a serious deal because this is going to trickle through the entire economy. The Fed, the Federal Reserve, has said here previously or recently that a funding lifeline created for banks last year after the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank and other major national banks that have collapsed here recently threatened to spark a wider financial crisis would close as scheduled in March 11th. And while it might not cause a collapse on March 11th, but it could cause it thereafter. And I'll show you here in a second here, as this has happened previously. The Fed also raised the interest rate on new loans from the BTFP, Bank Term Funding Program, for the remainder of its life. And this is going to affect interest rates for average everyday Americans, because when interest rates go up for banks, what happens? They charge it to people, they charge it to businesses, they pass on those higher interest rates to everybody else, effectively ending what had become a popular and profitable arbitrage programs for US lenders, which analysts said should deter fresh borrowing. The sunsetting of the program on March 11th had been signaled by the Fed officials as fear in the banking system abated. The BTFP was designed in that emergency situation, the Fed's vice chair for supervision said, referring to the banking sector panic triggered by SVB's rapid collapse and several other banks collapsed after. It was designed for the emergency to say, we want to make sure that banks and creditors of banks and depositors in banks understand that banks have the liquidity that they need. Now, when the Fed and Jerome Powell ends the BTFP banking emergency liquidity on March 11th, 2024, it begins falling from that date. Jerome Powell did the same thing in January 2020 when he pulled emergency repo interventions away. Hank Paulson also pulled repo away in September 2008, right when the crash became back then. It's by design. And guess what happened in those two previous times, right after January 20th and September 2008? Well, yeah. So we will take a look here. So here on the screen is January of 2020, and right after that came a massive stock market drop right after that. And also, same thing here, September 2008, the Dow went from 11,500 all the way down to 7,000 just a few months later. That's like a 30% drop. Yeah, so you got to kind of wonder, should the Fed do this just because they think the economy is booming and now is the time to pull the liquidity plug? Yikes. The other problem is, yet again, this could cause interest rates for average everyday Americans and businesses to go up yet again. And thank you for liking and sharing these videos. Click here to see the government just change their minds on a major decision, or click here to see the Fed's massive announcement. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.